In Flesh and Blood, nothing is ever quite what it seems. Illusionists might seem sweet on the outside, right until you get an angel or dragon messing up your day. Step into the world of light, phantasm, and deception. In this episode, we're breaking down the Illusionist class in Flesh and Blood. From dazzling auras to fragile but powerful phantasms, Illusionists bend the battlefield by forcing opponents to question every swing. Whether you're here to learn the fundamentals, explore Prism's radiance, bask in the past with Dromai's dragons, or remain enigmatic with Enigmas, that's going to be a trouble, guys. Quick rise and departure. This episode will help you master the art illusions or break free of them. Man, Enigma. What would have thought that would have tripped me up?
Who would have thought?
I'm Will.
And I'm Ning, and we are joined today by the great Jeremy Chen. He is consistent day tour and callings and battle hardens. He is the one who brought Dromai to LL in the 2024 Battle Harden in Atlanta. And most recently, he got to top 16 in Kansas City calling with Oscillio.
Yeah. And
welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy, for coming on our show. Yeah, right? That's great to have you.
Hello.
And before we begin the cast, I always like to ask any people that come onto the show for the first time, how did they start Flesh and Blood? Like, what's your origin story?
So I played a lot of Magic growing up, and I was a big fan of that game. And around the time that Flesh and Blood released, my local game store actually, was introducing the game to folks, and this was actually up in New Jersey before I came down to Georgia for college. So now you can guess how old I am. And they gave me 2 Ira decks. I played the Ira starter decks with one of my buddies, and I just thought, wow, this is amazing. Like, I thought the pitch system was the most fascinating thing ever. And if anyone who's played those starter decks a lot knows, they're wildly unbalanced. They're just for teaching the game. But just from that, I thought the pitch system was so great and beautiful and ingenious that I almost immediately just jumped ship. So I've been playing ever since Tales of Aria release. Actually I got the Armory decks a little before them, and then Tales of Aria is when I started really taking things seriously. And I've loved Flesh and Blood ever since.
I know when I first met you, you were always very patient when we were trying to learn and saying, hey, you gotta think about X, Y, and Z when you're doing this. And, I didn't realize how strong our meta was. But then when he took out Battlehard in Atlanta, I was like, dang, right, I play with this guy. I'm in the middle of greatness here. Right? Now, you might notice that we're missing Trevor and Evan. They saw that this was a Illusionist cast, and they were like, you know what? We're out. You can't see us, right? Cue the John Cena music. No, they had other obligations tonight. But, Illusionist is one of those polarizing classes in Flesh and Blood. There are people that either love them or people that absolutely hate them. So we brought you on, Jeremy, because you really kind of specialized in Dromai and Illusionist-like classes for a while. So what drew you to the class specifically? Why did you main Dromai for so long?
So what's actually funny is when I started the game, I jumped a lot around quite a bit to figure things out, and then stuck with Phi a lot. So I picked up Phi and then brought him to Nats in 2022, and actually top 32 Nats on Phi. And Phi is a very fundamentals-based hero, right? So that's where I feel like I got my base. And through that, I really grew to appreciate the system of Flesh and Blood. But then I tried Illusionist and realized that Illusionist broke all of those rules. And from there, I was like, man, I have to play these non-traditional heroes.
Yeah.
Right. No longer the days of, warrior, guardian, brute, ninja, right? They're all very, I don't want to say basic, but they're more rooted in fab fundamentals of math. And Illusionist takes the paradigm and breaks it. And I really like that. So, and like you said, it's polarizing for sure. But basically, I just like that it takes the game of Flesh and Blood that I love so much already and flips it on its head.
Very cool. And then, Jeremy, one of the things we like to do on this cast is, since we're a learning journey podcast, we always like to cover what we learned since last week. And since, I asked the question, well, guys, what did we learn since last week? Ning, if you want to start us off, and then Jeremy, I'll go, and then if you want to cover what you learned last week, that way you get the gist of things, and then we'll go right into the meat and potatoes of the deep dive into the Illusionist class. That sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. Well, I learned that puffin is a really good time, as I'm sure Jeremy can attest on the other side of the table. I don't know how to compare it to Dash.io per se, but like doing piratey things and having the cogs and bring them out was really fun. And then there was a play line that I did against Jeremy where I did this T-Bone go again, and I brought out his Mage Master boots as he was playing Gravy. And then I had enough cogs to use Palantir Aeronaut to destroy his boots after he was blocking with something else. And then this turn after that, I was able to bring out another Palantir to break more gear. And then the turn after that, I broke one more. So basically, he ran out. He was a naked Gravy Bones by turn 5 or so.
So you're saying you laid your cog on the table and you stripped Gravy Bones? Yeah, that's great, dude.
You heard it here first. Ning stripped me on Tunic countering gamers.
I stripped him with my cogs right on the table. That's right,
man. Right, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm still on the Mario train. He's fun. A lot of different things you can do with Mario, and actually, I think I was playing against Jeremy's Gravy Bones at this time, and it was his first time piloting Gravy Bones. It was my first real game with Mario, and I know Mario's not favored into Gravy, which I look forward to those kind of matchups too, because you hear about it, but I really want to play it, right? I want to see why it's not favored. And then actually, it was playing with you, Jeremy, that I realized that why that's not favored, but it's not an unwinnable matchup. You just have to play it a little bit differently. So I actually took what Jeremy told me in that matchup and continued on with Mason, who is another Gravy Bones player, and I was able to kind of secure that victory a little bit more. And it's really about when to ignore the allies, when to let the allies remain supreme, how to really handle the chum mechanic. Although Mason did, pull a card on me that I did not think about with chum, and that's that new card from the Mastery, the Guardian pack, the blue one. Do you remember what it is?
Confrontation.
That's the one. So, and that's what I learned. So I learned multiple things, but one, about fearless confrontation exists, and two, sometimes the right call is not to focus on chum, but let them make you focus on chum first. So. And then Jeremy, what did you learn since last week?
I learned that Palantir Aeronaut is a great card. All right,
I can attest.
All right, that might be cheating. I'll say this is I've been playing a lot of Oscillio lately. He's been my tournament deck, and obviously I did very well at KC with him. But I've decided that it's time to, always got to swap it up now. And then I've gotten to the 4th Illusionist in a game, which you left out of your intro, which is Gravy Bones.
And, we always talked about that too. I was going to mention that too. Like, do we pick Gravy Bones in this Illusionist cast? Because he is Illusionist adjacent. I've always said that, right? And Jeremy, you said you agreed with that statement.
I think of it as an Illusionist. Like, they're all just different flavors. They just all have their own unique silent mechanics. But it depends on how much time we have today. In any case, I consider him an Illusionist, and I think my main lesson for this week is understanding when to use your compass, because there's a lot of things you have access to so many things in that deck, right? You have all this gold, so you can draw and find things when you need. You also have saltwater swell, chart to high seas, all these things that care about the top of your deck, and understanding when to use compass is really important. I'm not going to go too deep, but the general idea is if your play pattern will change because of what's on top of your deck, then that's a good time to use compass. But obviously, it goes much deeper than that.
Yeah, that's great insight. And maybe we have to have a kind of a Necromancer one-off, like where we kind of cover the deck and really cover those in and outs. Because Gravy Bones on the surface look so superficial, but when you get down into the meat and potatoes, I was going to say deep into the bones of it, you can really start unlocking the potential play lines. I didn't realize how deep he was until I played him myself a little bit. So
he's one of the higher skill ceiling heroes, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I know you always gravitate toward heroes that you have a high ceiling, regardless of where the floor is at. You just want that cap up here to be higher than the other heroes, right? So
it's more so that I really want to use my brain a lot. Like Oscillio, Gravy Bones, like both of these heroes are very cerebral.
Yeah.
So and In the current meta, they were really good, but I was actually playing Oscillio long before he was even good. So.
Yeah, I remember. So a little off script here. I'm gonna just shout it out though. We have a potential BNR that's banned and restricted list coming out September 1st. So, you guys can skip the like 30 seconds from here if you don't want to hear this. But Jeremy, do you think Gravy's going to be targeted in this BNR, and do you want to make a prediction of what card they're going to hit? And Ning, feel free to jump in here too. Do you think it's going to be the yellow tipple?
I think it's blue tipple.
Interesting. Okay. All right.
Interesting.
I think he just needs a slight hit, and yellow tipple obviously makes sense as well. But knowing LSS, it feels like they're gonna target one of the commons and specifically one color of it. So my money's on blue tipple
or swelling.
Yeah, tipple or swell.
Yeah. You don't think they're going to restrict, one card of, and I'm not even sure if that's something they do, but they do, right? Like, I know they banned the Count Your Blessings when that was running rampant in the meta, but so the tipple, you think they might hit either one color of, or how about restriction? Anything of that?
I think we've
I think that is the restriction
in LL. Or we've only had restrictions like one. You mean like one copy?
Yep.
I think that's only happened in LL, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Was Bonds of Ancestry, that was LL where they only allowed one, or was that CC?
Ooh.
I don't remember. I know there's like some Starvo cards that are like one ofs.
Yeah.
I should know since I'm playing the battle card this weekend, but I have not been paying attention.
Well,
yeah.
But that's just something I was thinking of the top of mind. I was like, hey, I know why you guys are here. I'm kind of curious what you predict. But okay, so let's jump into the main thing why we're here. Illusionist brings such a unique gameplay that really thrives on board presence and kind of mind games. Unlike, like you were saying, like those fundamental classes, they rely on creating game-shifting constructs like on the board, auras, phantasm creatures, and weapons that deal with using these auras or using allies. Is there anything you want to add to that as far as the context of the Illusionist class? That because I only gave the superficial level. I've dabbled in Prism, but that's all I know. You've been around since Illusionists had more than one class at a time, right? So, what's your thoughts on the context of how Illusionists play, the game style they bring to the table, and then we could jump right into the background of when they first came out.
Yeah, sure. So I think and cut me off if I'm a little too long-winded here, but I have a lot of,
I got you for 2 hours. I got you for 2 hours and 4 minutes, brother.
So the surface level is that Illusionists are ally-based, right? And that's been the case for all three of our, technically four, double count Prism. But the point is they have allies, right? But that's not really it, right? The real environment they create is that they break the rules of the game, right? Flesh and Blood has a system where you draw up a fresh hand every turn, right? And the player who uses their hand most efficiently on a turn-to-turn basis ekes out advantage over a long game and wins, right? And this is true for the Welcome to Wraith classes: Ninja, Brute, Guardian, Warrior, right? Classic gameplay. Allies stick around from turn to turn. They make your opponents attack them instead of your face, right? Or if you ignore them, they stick around and generate advantage for later. So in that sense, Illusionists break the rules of the game, and it's not simply like you have a Kyloria out, right? It's Enigma changing. Here's the best example of Enigma breaking the rules of the game. Enigma worked so that when you had Ward out, right, that was your offense. The higher your defense was, the better your offense was. So the way to beat Enigma is that you had to clear her board every turn. You had to attack her and deal damage to her every turn if you wanted to stop her offense. If you weren't able to break through the shields, well, then you just got hit for more and more, right? And that's different from all other traditional Flesh and Blood gameplay, because if you had a bad hand, well, guess what? You could block with it, right? You could reset, you could slow it down a little bit, arsenal key card, wait for your big combo, right? Enigma didn't give you that space. And what that meant was her deck building was insane. She got to play Sink Below Fate Foreseen, and then they released Shelter from the Storm. So you got to play 9 D-Reacts, right? And they weren't bricks because your opponent had to attack you, right? Normally a deck would play 9 defense reactions and be like, oh man, I'm so scared of bricking. I'm so scared of bricking. But for Enigma, she was just like, oh great, I have 3 D-Reacts in my hand. You have to attack me. Oh great, you can't get through my 3 D-Reacts. Here's a Mirror Guy for 12.
Yeah, that's bringing you're triggering a lot of our audience members right now. They're hearing you say that, and they're connecting those pieces, and they're like, "Oh man!" And you know, they're probably shaking their hands as they're taking shots of whiskey, and they're like, "Let me get back to this." But yeah, that's really well explained. In fact, I think it was you that told me illusionists want to keep their allies or their auras or anything else on the board for longer than 1 or 2 turns, because LSS builds their values based off how long they're out. And so once you hit past the critical point in the turn, that means you've gained exponential value. And anything after that is so much more free as far as value goes. And once you explained that to me when I was struggling with Illusionist, I was like, that makes so much sense. Right. So, and I guess that does ring true for Gravy Bones a little bit too, because his allies stay on the board. But I think they did that really well where they least limited the amount of allies you could swing at one time. They had to have some special functions.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, as
okay.
far as I'm concerned, the only difference between Necromancer and Illusionist is that Necromancer doesn't have free go again, but he still has access to, you know, Tipple and Gold Kiss Rum. Before, well, if most of the ally-based shenanigans are priced at a point where if they stick around for more than 1 turn, they've gotten plus value.
Yep.
So, and and so at its fundamental core is because allies stick around from turn to turn, they break the rules of Flesh and Blood.
That's great. Yeah, Ning, anything you want to add to the context, or did we pretty much sum it up pretty good?
I mean, I'm just traumatized. So when I first got into the game, I started with Azuri, and the only way that I could talk anybody into playing the game was my buddy Clinton in Florida. And I was like, hey, I am thinking about getting into card games again. Do you want to play Magic the Gathering with me, which at the time Ixalan just came out. So that was like dinosaurs and stuff, which he's a big fan of. Or do you want to get into Flesh and Blood with me and look, dragons? And he said, oh, dragons. And so most of my matches when I first started was Azuri versus Dromai, which you can believe is not a very easy matchup for me as Azuri, right? Because inherently there's not a lot of go again, so I couldn't really clear the board very well. But I did have a lot of phantasm poppers, which we'll get into in a minute. But I think my win rate with that is probably like 5 to 10%, just because it was hard to understand how to play at the time. And then also, you know, just like Jeremy said, they break the rules and from the get-go, and like I didn't know what the rules were. So
that's fair.
So yeah, but other than that, yeah, I mean, Illusionists definitely just seemed cool in general, just because summoning things was always kind of my kind of flavor when I was playing video games and such. So,
and you know, one of the things about the Illusionist class specifically is a lot of their cards are very beautiful. Like that's what got me like interested in Prism, is because those angels, right? And they're not like your typical anime angels, big buxom ladies or whatever. They're like hardcore archangel, let me smite you fury, and I love that art style. So you know, and that's pretty cool. But yeah, like, and we'll cover a little bit of the background, then we'll jump into the couple of key concepts. I think we kind of dabbled a little bit on that too. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I always get this wrong, and our historian Evan is not present right now. But Prism Sculptor of Arclight came out in Monarch, right? And that was our OG Prism. She LL'd, but they loved the angels so much, so they gave her the second treatment. And Prism version 2, Awakener of Soul, the current Prism that's here, came out in Dusk Till Dawn. Like the somewhat expansion slot or the expansion packs for the Monarch set. And then after that, Dromai came out in Uprising, and then we had Enigma and MST or Mistfell, right? So that's kind of the history of it.
Uprising came before Dusk Till Dawn.
Okay. Yeah.
So there was a format where OG Prism and Dromai were legal, and then original Prism LL'd and also came back in the time that Dromai was still legal.
Yeah. And so I'm looking at when we go into the class breakdown, right? We'll talk a little bit more about why Sculptor of Artlight was so strong. I'm having a suspicion it was not just so much her hero ability, but also her weapon, right? But like that's a little foreshadowing for those people that are still, got the shivers coming down their spines with that. So a couple of the key concepts with Illusionist. Ning, do you want to mention a few? And then Jeremy, feel free to chime in whenever
Uh,
of these.
Sure. I think we mentioned it before, right? That the concept of allies, it was pretty big with Illusionists. Specifically, Dromai had the Ash Dragons, and then Prism 2 has all of her angels. And that was kind of building the board states with ally-specific items.
Was there a dragon specifically more than anyone else that you mentioned Kyloria earlier, right? Right. So this is your typical dragon, has a life bar down here, and it's your typical ally play. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think
the way Dromai allies worked is they were actually flip cards. So
Mm-hmm.
the front side cost. So you'll see that the front side of this
if you
card cost 1, red pitch, blocks your 3, and then it says transform into the backside, basically,
Okay.
or transform an Ash you control into this backside.
So that would be the invoke Kyloria, then you would transform into the dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, very cool. And then allies very similar, right? Except it's like flip cards. They come out as auras, then you do an action and they flip. What's the most popular angel out there? It's gotta be
it's different. They come out as figments, which is
there
technically a
you go.
different thing.
Yeah.
But I think the
Here, we'll
erudition one.
we'll bring up it because this is the
Yeah,
one that
yeah,
people love, right?
there she is.
And then I always say angels because that's what they look like, but they are not. They are, I guess, archangels, right? So angel allies. So a trigger happens, and there's something you could do to flip this card over into the archangel version of it, right? And figment of blank, you could usually be an archangel of blank. So that's the angels and dragons. Now Enigma is a little different. She had auras, right? And you mentioned the big beefy one that everyone loved.
Manifestations of Miragai.
That's the one. Kind of their own versions of their dragon, right? As you can see down here, it's an instant aura. This was not a flip card. They had a different flip mechanic. And then, so this is where this kind of doubled as a way for her to use it as an attack. So a lot of illusionists, even though this is one class, they did something very similar amongst all the classes, very different in how they executed that game plan, right? Dragons
Mm-hmm.
with Dromai, angels with Prism, and auras with Enigma.
Yeah, and that's actually something I wanted to mention is that all 3 of these heroes are actually very different, like very different. And
Mhm.
and here's the thing: is we pull up these namesake ally cards, and I'm sure seasoned players understand, but we're missing a lot of context here, right? The dragon itself doesn't actually, or sorry, the Dromai dragons themselves don't actually have the attack function.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
They got to attack because of the weapon. The weapon said dragons you control can attack, right? Manifestations of Mirror Guide just has some counters on it. How do you attack with it? Enigma's weapon, Cosmos, Scroll of Ancestral Tapestry, lets you attack with auras. So we could honestly spend a podcast on each of these heroes because
Right.
they're so
Yeah.
so complicated and there's so many moving pieces. But the baseline is just that these things stick around, right? They
Yeah.
stay on the board unless your opponent finds a way to clear them.
Yeah. And so when you look at illusionists, you also have to definitely look at the weapons. It sounds like that's where a lot of their power comes from, and especially how they utilize their allies, either like through prisms, weapon to give some kind of benefit to the angels versus Dromai's weapon, who gave her dragons the ability to attack. That makes sense. So it's going to be kind of complicated. We're going to try to cover a general overview while hitting specifics. But there is one thing that's similar across all the classes, and that's a keyword called phantasm, right? So, what's the most famous phantasm card you could think of that probably would transcend most decks? Is there one, or is this one you kind of pick and choose depending on your deck's purpose?
I think, like I mentioned before, like the heroes were very different from each
Mm,
other, but we can go with the Prism one, or we can talk about maybe Miraging Metamorph, because I know that was played in multiple. That was at least played in Prism and Enigma.
okay. So
So
Miraging Metamorph.
Yeah.
And this really we're looking more at the phantasm keyword here, kind of giving you concept of the card. And when we go into the actual heroes, we'll kind of deep dive into this too. So this one is for those that listen, it's a Miraging Metamorph, it's a red card, it's 1 cost, it's Phantasm. This is the part we're talking about. When Miraging Metamorph is defended by a non-illusionist attack action card with 6 or more power, destroy Miraging Metamorph and close the combat chain. And then usually sometimes these auras or actions will have an effect if they're destroyed in this manner. This says when Miraging Metamorph is destroyed, create a token as a copy of an aura you control. Seems pretty strong. It's 7 attack and 3 defense. So that's a above rate card if I ever seen right there.
yeah, the basic idea of Phantasm is simply like there is a risk of attacking with them,
Mm,
right? Certain classes will quote unquote pop them, but you get extra bonus power. For in this example, right, the 1 cost red card usually attacks for 5.
mm.
They're giving you 7
Mm-hmm.
power for Phantasm, and also sometimes it's not even that bad if they pop it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yep.
Kind of made wishes I brought out my Prism some more. So once I've seen these cards again.
Can still do it.
Oh, I probably will. All right. So, and then one of the sections is we covered a couple key concepts. Like, is there any other key concepts you could think of at this time before we go into like the overviews of the class itself?
We could talk about Spectra for a little bit because that's
Sure.
also. I see
Yeah.
Ning shaking his head.
We've all been we've all been touched in a very different way by these illusionist classes. Some of us like to join the fun, and some of us just like to hide and walk away. So actually, we'll go into more of a generic one.
This card. I hate this
This is a
card so
good. This is a
much.
great segue. But yes,
We'd like to read this one for our listeners.
Oh, oh boy, would I? Sure. So a very popular Spectra card that a lot of illusionists played is called Passing Mirage. It's a blue 0 cost card. It says your first illusionist attack each turn loses and can't get Phantasm. Let's note that it does not say your first illusionist attack action card. It doesn't say, oh, it's a weapon attack. It just says any attack loses Phantasm. So that's annoying. And then second of all, the meat and potatoes of it was Spectra. This can be attacked. When this becomes the target of an attack, destroy it and close the combat chain. The attack does not resolve. What that means is, as poor Azuri, let's say I have a whole hand of cards and I need to get rid of this. I can't go wide because I lose my go again if I need to get rid of this. But
Yeah.
also, it's hard to go wide. And so it's like, do I hit face or do I try to get rid of this annoying thing just for them to throw one down again next turn? I don't know. We're not traumatized.
And
It's fine.
that Spectra, like the importance of destroy and close the combat chain, the attack does not resolve is such a big concept for the illusionist identity and this
Well,
keyword itself. Like, Jeremy, I'm glad you brought it up because I totally, as a key concept, kind of glided back over it. Maybe I've tried to like blank it out, but what's your thoughts on the Spectra mechanic and how like you mentioned it specifically. So what can you tell us about Spectra?
oh, I think it's an awfully designed mechanic. I don't think it should exist.
Tell us how you feel. LSS, they watch this
I
podcast. Just let
agree.
everyone know. Well,
yeah, I mean,
they,
as you can see, they're not bringing it back anytime soon, right? Because
yeah,
like the clear thing, right, for those who haven't played against these kinds of effects before, is that the attack does not resolve means your go again does not resolve,
yeah.
right? So if you clear this thing, it ends your turn, right? And the other reason, like for some more context as to why Ning is hemming and hawing about illusionist attack and not attack action, is that all of Dromai's allies have Phantasm, right? That was part of their balancing mechanic, right? But the way you got around that was you played a dragon, right? And then you played this thing. Now your dragons couldn't get popped, And then now they have to decide between, if they didn't have go again, they had to decide between clearing your dragon and clearing your passing rod.
Oh man, but doesn't that go with the game plan of keeping your allies out at least additional turn to really get that maximum value? Like it's like they purposely designed these cards to kind of torture people like Ning.
It's quite obnoxious.
And
Yeah.
boy,
With
howdy, can
Spectra,
Dromai get all those allies out.
Yeah.
So-
I guess I never
and
really
so the
suffered.
reason Spectra, and so the reason I don't think Spectra should exist is because there really shouldn't be these, like, we can argue back and forth about whether allies should exist, and I know there are people very passionate about this, but Spectra fundamentally just ending your turn on the spot is really, really broken, right? It means that the only classes that can reasonably deal with them are the classes that go wide, right? Ninja, right? They can go attack, attack, attack with all this go again, and they end the turn on clearing the Spectra. That's not too bad, right? Whereas Bravo, right, wants to pitch his entire hand to play Crippling Crush. Well, you're not getting your value, right? If you have to send one attack at a Spectra and your turn ends.
Yeah.
So it's quite a controlling mechanic, and if you come from other games where you like playing control and being obnoxious, well then Spectra is the name.
This is the one for you.
But yeah, I would be very surprised if they brought the mechanic back, but it does exist and is relevant in certain applications.
Well, I do like, and this is on an aside, so again, I'm being mindful of Jeremy's time here. 1 hour and 44 minutes, Jeremy. But I do like how they did try to bring out other mechanics for the newer classes that can kind of target this. I know this was made for Gravy Bones specifically, but it does help with like the Spectra as targets go. I think if they brought and this was designed for Ranger, which is a go tall, not a go wide class. So I think if they did this with other classes like Guardian, you could probably be a little bit more fair with Spectra, but you're right. It's a fundamental card that's not fun to play against. And one of those things that people tend to remember very fondly of, and I use that word loosely, if like we get Ning's reactions. So really sometimes like the Illusionist class is a new player stopgap. It's a hard stop for new players because they have to kind of learn how to play against the class specifically before they get better against the wider meta. Right? Especially there's a lot of Illusionists in the meta. But yeah, so going on, we like to cover the offensive strength and weaknesses of a class. And these are generic concepts because this, again, a learning journey podcast. So we cover the general concepts and then we'll kind of give little tidbits or advice of how to handle it. We feel like if you have a general understanding of how a class plays, both offensively and defensively, you'll have better tools in your toolbox to be able to mitigate that matchup. At least know why you're losing it a little bit more common. So what we're going to do is cover the offensive strengths and weaknesses, and then we're going to cover the defensive strengths and weaknesses, and then we're going to jump into the key cards that we haven't really covered, but we should probably mention. And that could be anywhere from equipment, Jeremy, to, aura, spectras, or other types of cards specifically that you think really enhances the gameplay for a specific hero. Does it sound good? All right. He gave me the thumbs up. So that means it sounds great. He said it was the best things he ever heard. I'm reading his mind right here.
That's a lot to interpret from a thumbs up.
And yet so true.
So one of the offensive strengths we already mentioned was the board state, right? Having the permanents on board, staying on board, but also if they're staying on board, you get pit more on the board. So having a wide board state, right? Meaning you're having a lot of different options to choose what to attack with. And like the Spectres, they stay on board until someone pops them, destroys them. So that could build up a really obnoxious game state, and that's a defensive strength because that pits the question to your opponent: do I attack the Spectra? Do I kill the ally? Or do I attack and try to get life off the player? So Illusionists might start, like I know Gravy Bones is 40 life, Prism's 32, and Dromai was
40.
40. So, but it's not really what's that value that's printed on the card. They had so much more life than what was printed on the card. And that's more of a defensive strength we could talk about. But yeah, so that's the whiteboard state. Do you guys have any other offensive strengths that Illusionists have?
I think one of the big things is they force your opponent to really think about what to do. And what I mean by that, again, going back to the Dromai, but it's also applicable to Prism, or the current Prism, is how do you want to how should you decide what to pop in terms of phantasm, right? What I mean by that is with Dromai, you, like I said before, you can have an army of dragons, and one of the most common dragons is something called Aether. What's it called? Aether Wing, Ash Aether Wing, something like.
Aether
Yeah,
Ashwing.
there we go, Aether Ashwing. So it was a very
Whoa, you
easy
can't use that
token.
language on this podcast, Ning.
Oh, wait until you hear what other words I have for it. So it was just a token dragon that pokes for 1 basically, and then with whatever mechanics Dromai has, it has go again. And you also have all these other dragons that you can kind of build up.
Oh
One
my
of the
God.
easiest ways
It had
to kill
arcane
this
barrier?
dragon.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they had free arcane barrier.
Oh, sorry, Ning, to interrupt. Go ahead, man.
That's a whole other situation. But yeah, so you have all these Aether Ashwings, and then you have all these other dragons. And for Dromai, one of the key concepts is they have to be summoned with an Ash. And when that happens, they obtain the word phantasm on it, right? And so if they attack, then you can block with a generic or an attack action card that has 6 or more. And if that happens, the card is destroyed, which means the dragon attacks can no longer get go again. Well, if they have 5 of these baby dragons and they have 2 big dragons, do you just take 5 small pokes and then wait for the big dragon to come at you and then you attack with a blocker, or pop with them with a popper? Or do you just pop on the very first one so they can't get that go again, but they still have this big dragon at the end? To this day, I don't know, because my win rate's pretty low. But in general, they have these, illusionists have these kinds of questions all the time. Similar with Prism, of like, hey, should I be poking at this ally directly, or should I try to attack face and maybe their ward will pop, or am I supposed to just try to pop the herald attack and figure out what to do from there?
Yeah.
So
I'll give you your answer to your wide board state question if you want.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
The answer is you're kind of screwed either way. So
yeah, that's correct. That is correct. Yeah. That is the lesson I've learned at the end of it all. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but to make a serious piggyback off your point, Ning, it's that their strength comes from the snowball effect.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Once they get going, right, it's very hard.
It's so hard to stop
them.
Yeah.
Right. Once you fall behind a little bit, right, that's when the Illusionist player pounces on that opportunity and keeps the train moving.
Yep. Yep.
So
yeah, that's
and
tough.
This
too.
concept applies for all of the Illusionists, right? Like their ally sticks around, and suddenly they have a way to convert that into more value, put you even farther behind, and suddenly it feels like, wow, I can't do anything, right? And that's why the class is so polarizing.
Yeah. And I know, to Ning's point, you said, do I block the small little baby dragon that pokes for 1 and pop it with phantasm? And then, because if that stops their turn, how would they swing with the large dragon? Well, illusionists in general have at least one way throughout each turn to mitigate that phantasm popping. They might not have 2 ways, so that's how you would swing it. So you swing the baby dragon first, try to clear that popper, and then if you don't, if he doesn't have the popper, he gets the full damage. And you swing the big dragon, and then that's when you use the popper. So either way, the illusionist is having that question being asked toward the opponent, and the opponent has to answer it. Do I pop the first dragon, hope he doesn't have the way to mitigate that phantasm being popped, or do I wait for the big, strong attack to try to get my maximum value? Right? Again, cheating the system, like Jeremy was saying earlier, right?
I will say Dromai specifically didn't have a way to she didn't have a Phantasmal Footsteps style card. So if you popped, you did generally end the turn, unless the dragon you popped was Chromai.
Freaking Chromai.
Yes. So I think that might be what you're referring to, Will. So in that case, she got an extra swing there, but the concept remains the same, right? Like you pop the baby dragon, the big ones are still on the board, right? And then now, right, that cognitive load we're talking about, do I attack that dragon or attack their face? Doesn't matter. Your decision's bad either way.
Yeah.
If you don't attack the dragon, it's coming for your life again next turn.
Yeah. So any other offensive strengths that you guys can think about? I think with Prism specifically, I don't know if I will say I'm very ignorant when it comes to Dromai. I played against you a couple times, Jeremy, when I was still relatively new in this game, but I haven't played against a lot of Dromais before she LL'd because of Jeremy actually LLing her. But I know with
it is my fault.
I know with Prism, some of her attacks you kind of bait them, but you really are setting up to swing like a card that has a really strong relevant on hit. For instance, like there is like using Archangel of Erudition when you bring it out and you swing with it. If you this is probably not a good example. Let's say the Herald of Erudition is probably the better one, right? There's ways to use this card where it's dominate, and if it hits, you draw 2 cards by pitting this card into your soul, all that stuff. But this is a really strong, relevant on hit, and it's a pretty high value attack if it does connect, right? And it does have Phantasm, but it's also got the dominate keyword. But there's several cards like this for Prism. So there's a lot of relevant on hits in these decks. Is that the same, or was Dromai more damage focused?
Dromai didn't have that many on hits. Like
Okay.
Kyloria is the best example of one.
I think with Dromai, a lot of her on hits were from attack action cards that say, if hit, create the Ash resource. But a lot of the allies, and I think a lot of allies for Prism as well, it just says, when this attacks, do the thing. Except for Kyloria, where there is this, when it hits a target hero.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the dynamic you're explaining, Will, is unique to Prism, I think.
Okay.
Because her hero power is the on hit.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Then we'll keep that shelved for when we talk about Prism and deep dive into that a little bit more. But let's talk about some of the offensive weaknesses, right? Do you want to try to take the first one, Ning or Jeremy, or you want me to try to come up with something?
Well, I see the first one is no lubricate, so...
I mean, why are you playing any class with no lubricate? That's
it's funny. I have these ready.
There it is.
Trevor.
Yeah.
I out of the jetpack.
Oh.
That's so good.
So, all right, I say it every week, so I figured I share it with Evan a lot, so I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to explain that the weakness to any class is there's no lubricate, right?
Really not.
So one of the things I notice is, again, this is with Prism, resource hungry. It like a lot of the turns they have has to like the optimized turns requires a lot of setup. You can possibly brick before you get to this part, and as you guys mentioned earlier, you lose your tempo as an illusionist. It is hard to get it back, or you're letting your opponent get that tempo. So one of the offensive weaknesses is you need to set up, and you need to kind of keep on applying pressure. Because if you don't, there's a potential for them to swing back. Now I know this might be different because Dromai was typically a red line deck, right, or had a very low cost.
She primarily played red cards because she cared about pitching red cards. So the Ash that token that we brought up earlier, you made Ash whenever you pitched a red card.
Okay, and that must have been her weapon that did that then.
That's her
weapon,
ability.
Your Dragon Swing, her hero power made Ash when you pitched reds.
Gotcha.
Yeah, her weapon was if you have played a red card, then your dragons go again.
That was also on her hero power.
That was also her ability? Oh, gotcha. It's just the weapon just says dragons can attack, I guess.
Yes, the weapon says dragons can attack,
yeah. I don't know. Dromai's all busted. She only used the one thing. That said, I think one of the train engines that she also had was the flame scale furnace. Is that right? Where that was an easy way to pitch into things and also get some extra resource, but also make more ashes.
Yeah. And then
so Will is correct, and I do think it's fair to say that a weakness of Illusionist is that they require setup, but it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek weakness because the setup is kind of minimal, depending what era we're talking about. Right. They've printed a lot, like out the gates. Like think about it this way, right? All of the Illusionists that have been printed have LL'd.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas how many brutes are still like legal in the game?
How dare you, Jeremy?
All of them?
How dare you? Well, hey, that blue 6 that Reinhardt's getting, he's going to LL. Anyways.
Yeah, tell me why it blocks 0.
Because it's just there to pop, you know? Easy.
It's too strong. It's too strong. Anyways.
Oh, it's too powerful.
Very funny because we were
yes,
talking
like,
about this class though.
But yes, like they require like setup, right? Like
Mhm.
Enigma needed to flip cheat, right? She needed to have the cheat in her deck, right? To be ready to do other things.
Mhm.
Dromai needed to have Ash, so she needed to pitch a red card to start the game and get the ball rolling, right? And Prism needs to hit with a angel. Sorry, new Prism needs to hit with an angel to get a Figment out to get that ball rolling. But in a lot of games, these are all requirements, but they're not very harsh requirements.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This is a weakness on a technicality.
Like even still, like let's talk about Necromancer, Illusionist adjacent. His is you have to play a blue card, right? And you can start using things from the graveyard. So it kind of going to the same thing. Maybe he is Illusionist, but they didn't want to give us another Illusionist because they didn't want to use all the cards that Illusionists have access to.
If he had a weapon, he would be an Illusionist.
Oh yeah. All right. One of those things is I do know with Prism, and I'm not sure. Like, it doesn't sound like this is a thing Dromai used a lot because you didn't have ways to mitigate the phantasm. But when you played Prism, you always had to think of the poppers when you were swinging and attacking with your turn, because sometimes you have to ask yourself, is it worth my turn ending if I had no way to stop their popper from ending my phantasm? And that's an offensive weakness. You always had to kind of play around with that, or you might not have a full turn. And when you IP yourself with 3 cards or actually 2 cards left, it's kind of hard because you're losing such value. And these are value classes,
Dromai had the same problem. Right?
Okay.
You had to be careful. If your opponent was a class that could play poppers, you had to be careful about keeping a full grip, because if they popped your dragon, your turn was over.
Yeah.
So that's also a very good point. You did have to think about that. Enigma, you did not have to.
And then I guess another weakness is other illusionists in general, right? It's very hard to play a class that like offensively or defensively you're weak to other illusionists there, because all the cards they had didn't pop your stuff regardless of the power, because Phantasm only works against non-illusionist attacks, right?
How does that matchup feel?
It depends on the hero.
Fair enough.
I will say, so I personally really liked the Dromai Mirror because it was a I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but it was a very much like, I make my dragon, I kill your dragon, you make your dragon, kill my dragon. And there was a lot of kind of like game of chicken there, right? Yeah. You didn't want to be the first person to play out your good ally.
right.
Second person.
So you didn't want to be the first person with your ash in the air.
That's right. Exactly.
That's one way to say it.
I just wanted to get that off. I'm sorry. I'm happy now.
I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And Gravy is in a similar space, to be honest. So I have been enjoying the Gravy Mirror a lot. Prism mirrors and Enigma mirrors, I almost want to argue are like the worst mirrors possible. So honestly, I will say the Enigma mirror was very bad. So remember at the top of the show when I was explaining that Enigma got to play all these defense reactions and all these blue block threes that didn't, convert full hands because your opponent would just attack you, right? Well, that wasn't true in the mirror, right? Because the mirror was the only matchup where you couldn't just sit back and block every turn. You also had to attack them because they were doing to you the same thing that you were doing to them. So it was kind of like it's like when the Prism realm, I don't know, devil or whatever, met its match, and suddenly you're both locked in the Prism room with each other, and it sucks.
Funny. All right, yeah. So let's move on to the defensive strength. What do you guys think some of the defensive strengths of Illusionists were?
I think a key concept we might have forgotten was a key term, ward.
You know what? That seems pretty good. We did cover a little bit of it, but we'll bring up the good old Spectral Shield.
Spectral Shield. Yeah.
In fairness, this is specific to Enigma and Prism, so.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Oh, you never played this?
That one. I did actually play this card. You got me.
I didn't want to call you out, Jeremy. I'm sorry, man.
No, it's just
we'll go.
Matter. But we just heard it here first.
That's a point for you, Will.
I I just bit Ward and I saw this card. I was like, oh, that's a Dromai card. Click right when you said that. Well, we're here to
So
keep you humble too.
That's right.
dude, that's
That's
how
right.
you can turn this into a YouTube short now. Like,
It's true. I should get on that. Yeah.
oh, wrong
That's
guy.
our first short. Yeah.
Yeah. This is how you shame a constant day tour and a top battle hardened winner.
That's right. That's right.
Anyways, so Ward, let's take it off this one. And Ning, do you want to read what Ward is?
Sure. Ward X just means if you would be dealt damage, destroy this card to prevent X of that damage.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what matters is, or what something to note is, if there's an aura that has ward or something that has ward that says like ward 4. So a good example are the angels, one of the archangels. They are allies, but they also have the word ward on them. So if you deal just 1 damage to Prism, that will still use up that card and destroy the ally. So that is an interesting mechanic to always kind of think about too.
Yeah. And I know we could talk about this when we get to Prism briefly,
Mm-hmm.
but I think knowing when to use your ward and when to fish for these archangels is really what separates a great Prism player from an average one. Because, on face value, anyways, we could talk about that when we get to Prism. But yeah, the ward mechanic is very important and definitely one of the defensive strengths.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The reason why, like, we point to ward and we point to allies as defensive strengths, and why do we do that? It's because Flesh and Blood is designed around on-hit effects, right? And when you have a proactive defense like ward, or you force your opponent to make a decision to attack your ally, that on-hit or that negative effect is not coming at you, right? So Illusionists sometimes get a freebie, right? And I know Evan last week talked about things like Tar Pit Trap, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great
Jeremy,
defensive
you
card.
listen to us? Oh, I'm done. I'm so happy. Anyways, go ahead.
But yes, Tar Pit Trap lets you ignore such negative effect in the same way that ward, and in the same way that your opponent attacking your ally with a leave no witnesses, right, changes the defensive things. So that's a defensive strength because you don't get hit by those nasty red and ledger and so on.
That's very true. Especially relevant nowadays with the assassins taking over battle harden and callings left and right. So, well, one weekend, but it was still left and right. So, all right. I guess we mentioned this earlier, but another defensive strength is life that's printed on the card is deceptive, right? It is not the actual life that's printed on the card, right? Like, you could have a prism at 1 life, and that prism could still come back and win. So much easier. And that's why I always said the only good prism is a dead prism, right? It's really want to double tap her. But deceptive because they do have more life than what's printed on the card. Anything else you guys want to add on defensive strengths before we move on to the defensive weaknesses?
I will say one thing, which is to give an example to your point. Like, nowadays, everybody's played against Prism and understood the exact concept you said, but the same thing actually applied to Dromai as well, right? Because the dragons swung for 0, there were a lot of endgame scenarios where people were like, oh, I smell blood. Like, it's time to ignore the dragons. We're going to send it all at face. Only for Dromai to be like, okay, great. Block 12, swing my dragon for free. Block 12, swing my dragon for free. And then suddenly people were like, wait, why am I losing? Right? So same idea.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Ning.
Yeah. It was, actually with the day that you won that battle harden, I texted my buddy so fast and said, I don't have to play against your Dromai anymore.
So it's
Good
funny,
time.
Jeremy, because the shrine of you at Ning's house, not to make things awkward, actually grew right that day. It's not because
That's
you
right.
won the battle hard Atlanta. Right, it's because you LL Dromai. He never has to face the Dromai again unless he LLs or goes into the Living Legend format. So,
Absolutely.
all right. So I guess we can move on to the defensive weaknesses. This is the one I noticed, but I don't know if it's true across the board. I noticed that they're very similar to assassins, but they probably even have worse armor density than the other hero classes that I've seen. Maybe comparable to wizard.
That would be accurate, yeah.
Okay. Making bold statements, and Evan's here not to check me in. So I'm just making the wild statements here, guys.
Yeah, it just changes. Like in general, like they just don't have the biggest fridge, but even then, like LSS is still like Illusionist is like LSS's like favorite class, like secretly. So you still got things like Enigma got Traverse the Universe and
oh god, yeah, I totally forgot about that, dude.
The hand guard,
yeah,
hand common piece
what was
that
the
blocks
foot
you.
one? The word 3 feet.
We've played this game before. I don't know.
Oh, Meridian Pathways.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah, so in general, like Illusionist doesn't have that big of a fridge, but LSS still managed to break the rules now and then, right? Like this is a foot equipment a leg equipment that blocks 3. Like that should not exist. But hey, why not give Illusionist armor?
Yeah, I guess that's true. This was the exception to the rule, but it was locked behind the Mystic hero text. There is, I mean, we're going to talk about this now, but as far as block mechanic, we were going to cover this in key cards later. But this one does block 1, right? And if they break the chain, it could block 1 multiple times. You know, if you pay 1, it becomes 1 defensive power. And then you break chain, it doesn't mean that they get that negative token. They can just keep on blocking it with the further chains, right? So then, is that about right? If I'm remembering this right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no massive fridge in the sense that like the only temper 2 equipment I can think of is Dromai's chest, but otherwise, in general,
I think we all think about Dromai's chest. I'm sorry.
Every so often. So often.
What was her chest piece called? Do you remember? Is that
Flame Scale Furnace?
Flame Scroll?
Yeah.
Flame Scale Furnace. Yeah.
Isn't there also a hand piece that like blocks for 1, and then if it blocks, you automatically create a spectral shield or something like that?
Oh, the ward
gesture. Oh,
haze bending. No, not haze bending.
Wave of Reality.
Wave of Reality.
Yeah, it was a ward one, not a defense one, but it still, essentially was a ward 2.
Yeah. It was Wave of Reality.
But the thing about that one is it didn't let you control when to.
Right.
But funny story, this arm piece was played during Lexi meta because everything that Lexi sent was an on hit. So Wave of Reality lets you cover up the breakpoints. I love this card during Lexi meta. It was great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
In general, like when I think of like high armor classes, I think of the ones with access to like a lot of temper 2. So like Guardian, Rude Blade.
Yeah.
So,
but it seems like Illusionists can still sneak them in somehow.
Well, also, like we're talking about purely the numbers on how much it would block damage, but like a lot of those other classes that we mentioned, they actually have a relevant battle worn effect that they can still use their armor piece for, and it still stays in play. Where Illusionist, once it's gone, it's gone. You're stripped naked and you're just hanging out there in the wind. So I think that's the thing too to keep in mind. So yeah, weaker fridge than most other hero classes. I know we talked a lot about some of these key cards already. Jeremy, Phantasmal Footsteps, is that ran in almost every single class as far as Illusionist goes? I know you talked about Traverse the Universe, but that wasn't ran all the time with Enigma. You pretty much started with Meridian Pathways. What did I say?
Yes.
That's right. Wait, you don't wear your head on your feet? So Phantasmal Footsteps, that's kind of like where most Illusionists started with anyways, right?
I will say this is actually pretty specific to Prism.
Oh, okay.
Dromai didn't play Illusionist attack action cards that much. Like her damage was her allies.
Gotcha.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And, okay, so this and Enigma liked Pathways more, and also Quick Dodge Flexors when that came out. So yeah, Enigma also didn't. Yeah, like this card is good because it specifically lets your heralds get your action point back when they get popped. So yeah, this is a Prism card for sure.
Okay, so maybe that's where. And again, ever since I've been playing Prism, there's only been one Illusionist, right? Well, Gravy, but that's not really Illusionist as far as keyword goes. but like one illusionist, and that's where I thought this was centrally focused on them. But that makes sense that you said it. So maybe this isn't a key card for all the illusionist cast, but it's definitely a key card for the Prism class.
Yeah, it's more so emblematic of what illusionist means. Is that right? We mentioned a downside in phantasm, but LSS gave illusionist a tool to counteract it. So I'm really just turning into a heel this episode, aren't I?
No, dude.
Hey, this is good to know.
Yeah, like this is what we do. So I guess this is going to be hard to do with the key cards because every illusionist runs a different game plan. So if you wanted to cover what's the top 2 key cards for Dromai, and we could kind of go from there. What does she operate under? I mean, the dragons obviously, but
yeah. So all the dragons, they're great. They're costed in the sense that if they stick around, they're above value. So that's just the primary gameplay. But to facilitate that, I have to talk about Tome of Imperial Flame, which is
the book, right? Was this banned?
No, it was one of the only ones that were not.
Okay, okay.
You can play this in Fang if you want to.
Or Syndra.
Interesting. Is he a royal? I think he is.
Yeah. Syndra.
You don't even need the Crown of Dominion. You can just play them straight up in Syndra and Fang.
Yeah. So. Interesting. It's cute. I like cute.
Yeah, I have a very silly big cost Syndra deck that includes 3 of these and Flame Scale just to make something work.
But yeah, the reason, and honestly, like I said, one of the downsides of Dromai was you had to get the Ash going first, right? You had to pitch your red card at the beginning of the game to get 1 Ash, and then a lot of the dragons costed 1, so they were Ash neutral, right? You would pitch your red card to play the 1-cost dragon, and in turn you would refund the Ash that you're using. So once you got the first one was the most important. You could keep the ball rolling, right?
Okay.
And the thing is, this card took away that downside. I don't know why else this printed it. Like you played this card, you got to dig deeper into your deck to find your critical ally. You pitched 2 red cards away to make 2 Ash, right? And then the train was rolling, right? No setup cost, right? It's what vaulted. I believe this came out in Bright Light's expansion slot, and it's what vaulted Dromai to the top of the heavy hitters metagame, and that's why she won the PT, Arthur Trehay, and then ILL'd her in Battle Hardened Atlanta. This card is the reason why she LL'd.
Wow. I mean, it only takes 1 card. All right, hear that, LSS, Olympia? I'm just saying.
I don't know if it's just 1 card for that one.
They wasted 4 expansion slots in Olympia.
It's at least 4 cards.
So, oh God, I'm going off on a tangent here, but did you see the EA where you combine them and it forms the full picture? I don't know if that was like someone trolling me, but it seemed pretty cool.
That's pretty funny.
So
it looks cool. Now you can lose some style.
So
and one more thing about this card.
Yeah.
It's a pitch card that you can arsenal. Name another card in Flesh and Blood that does that.
Yeah.
Right.
Chart of the High Seas.
Yes. That's what I was looking for.
All right. Do you have a second card that's really like a key card for Dromai specifically?
Key card.
Like you can mention a dragon here.
Like
Raise is really annoying. I don't remember what it's called.
Rake the Embers.
What's that?
Yeah,
Rake the Embers.
Rake the Embers. Would you play a rainbow of this, or was it just the red? It would be just the red. Yeah, it would be just the red.
Obnoxious enough.
Yeah.
You make 3 1 toughness allies. There are not very many heroes in the game that can clear those effectively.
Yeah.
In fact, a majority of the cast cannot clear these 3 babies effectively.
That's great.
Yep.
All right.
That was great. Yep.
Man, I kind of wish never picking up Dromai, man. Not only dragons, but she seems really fun, right?
It's pretty cool.
And the amount of puns you could say with the Ash alone is fantastic.
I mean, it's no surprise Dromai was my favorite, and Illusionist is polarizing, but I think Dromai was actually the fairest one. She had her problems, like this card. This card is definitely unfair. But compared to the others, I would like to make the argument that she was the least offensive.
Fair.
So, it's funny because Evan was talking to me the other day, and he was like, Yeah, Jeremy, I have a greater appreciation for Dromai now that Gravy Bones existed. I was like, yes, take the heat off of me. And
I
then I went and
guess.
played Gravy Bones, so you know.
Well, and just to prove him wrong, right? Hello, you wish that.
Right.
So I guess we can move on to Enigma before we go into Prism. One of the key cards we already mentioned, Manifestation of Mirror Guy. This was such a great card for Enigma's identity because not only did it have a high ward, but it just exponentially got stronger. I think if you play this out correctly, it would swing for 8, but block. It would have a ward 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right.
Enigma's weapon said that the ward base is how much you attack for. So this one, yeah, Manifestations was ward 4 if you pitch the chi, and then it had 4 counters on top of it. So it would attack for 8 and then defend for 4.
Yeah, aggressive. And then what's another Enigma card that I'm forgetting about? Not including the boots and the helmet, but I know I'm
Probably
missing.
Restless Coalescence, the cats.
I love the
The
cats. Man, I have like 9 copies of this card, and I have no clue why. Right, but they should have made this a playmat.
It's a beautiful card.
If they made this a playmat, I would have bought it. Right, like, and I don't buy playmats. I have so many of them. So, but yeah, so Restless Coalescence, the cat card, yellow pitch, 0 cost, instant aura, and that's the thing with a lot of her cards. They were instant auras, so you could really have some fun with that. When this enters the arena, move any number of +1 counters from auras you control onto this. Once per turn instant, remove a +1 counter from this, create a Spectral Shield token, and it had a War 2 naturally. Yeah, so, and Enigma really did utilize a lot of the +1 counters a lot more than that was also a part of Enigma's game plan, was pitting counters on the auras so she could swing for with them for free, if I remember right. And then
the counters is what gave the auras go again.
there you go.
Right.
Okay. So there it is. So she had a lot of go against because of the counter. So this card really enhanced her game plan.
Yeah, it's just more so that like you were jumping through hoops in a sense, but the payoff was so large you just match the damage of other classes, right? Because you would play your aura, give it counters, and swing with it, right? Which is already an at rate play. But then you would play this as an instant, right? Doesn't need to use your action, but you move the counters over and you swing with those counters again, right? Now you're way above rate. And then also this thing blocks.
Yeah.
It has ward.
Yeah.
So
that's great. And it was 0 cost too. It's such a good card. And again,
yeah, so it was
probably
great.
My favorite picture in the whole dang game. Right?
It's really good.
So a couple more. I mean, Prism to me is like the easiest. Let's talk about like Herald of Erudition. This is the one that people like when they think about Prism. They think about this as an illusionist attack action that does have dominate phantasm. When it hits, it triggers her ability because she gets abilities that enhance. We'll talk about this when we go into the class specific Prism card. But when you put things into her soul, things happen with her ability, and you get to draw 2 cards on top of that too. So what's the value in this card? It's so high. And of course, the infamous. What do you think I'm going to say? The infamous
Arclight Sentinel.
Very good, Jeremy. Yeah. Arclight Sentinel. If you haven't been looped in Flesh and Blood at least once, what have you been doing with your life? Right?
Living it better, that's what.
That's right. That's right.
Truly. I remember when Cook first got me looped, and I was like, what? I can't break out of this? And he was like, no. It's like, I'm so confused.
You remember the days when the tome was still not banned too?
Yeah.
I don't remember what that book is called, but man, that
Tome
was
of Divinity.
Yeah. Golly. That plus Arclight Sentinel and Genesis and all the things just
Yeah, it was aggressive. So she had a lot of cards, and she could utilize most of her cards pretty efficiently. Right? So yeah, pretty aggressive. Arclight Sentinel. And because it's a Spectra card, and the opponents, when you play this, have to choose this to target with attacks if able, it would end their turn. They didn't have much ways to get around this. There's other cards in her deck where if a card's in the graveyard, you can put on top of your library, and then you can draw that card too with Erudition, and that's the loop. It just keeps on going on. So you'd always have to attack this card, always in your turn. And then it doesn't matter if Prism's leaking 1 damage or 2, you're just constantly taking that damage. So either you're fatigued or you're just bleeding damage left and right. Is that about the some of it?
Sounds
Living your
good.
life to the fullest. And of course, any of the other key cards, take your pick, but any of the aura cards have some play in any of the heroes, depending on what your hero is. Sigil of Solitude for, Enigma, and then we've already mentioned several other auras. Did Dromai have auras like this that she played a lot of?
The only one she realistically played was Passing Mirage, the one that Ning
Yeah.
was hemming and hawing about earlier.
And that's probably
And
the most
then
famous one.
in case that wasn't enough, Mirror Guy also just gives you the same effect anyway. So there is, Anyway, we can move on.
There is one other aura I specifically like, and it's the one that gives your phantasms +2.
Pierce
That's
Reality.
Pierce Reality. Thank you, Ning. So the Pierce Reality, these are things that stay on board to really force your opponent to decide, do I really want your phantasms to be even stronger on that first illusion stack action card you play? I mean, these angels are already
Mhm.
above rate, as we mentioned earlier. So this, that Herald Erudition is like a 7 dominate. It's going to be harder to block, if this card's out there. So they have to really choose get rid of the Pierce Reality, or you know not. That's going to Jeremy's point about the decision. So
Yeah, a lot of decision making.
now, Ning, you actually mentioned a good point. You wanted to mention an honorable mention, and Jeremy, I'm not sure if you know of what he's about to say. Do you want to give a little preamble for it, or you just want to jump right into it and just like say it?
Well, we've seen a decent amount of play recently from our honorary illusionist with this new card, and so I assume there might be some play with actual illusionists, and that is Fearless Confrontation. Just because we've been talking about phantasm and poppers, right?
It's a
If
blue
you
block
block with an
3.
attack, blue block 3. And if you discard it, then the target attack of a card gets -1 and loses. Well, now that I think about it, maybe not. Maybe not because it says target attack. So you don't have to necessarily worry about phantasm because of that.
Mm.
However, maybe that could still be like related to attacking allies. But yeah.
I will say this is a card that Enigma definitely would have played if she had her hands on it.
I don't think Prism would have played this as much, but Enigma would have played this because she likes the blues. How about Dromai? Would she ever played this?
I don't think Dromai would play this.
The blues and Dromai were very specific.
Okay.
Being
Purpose?
only Passing Mirage.
Okay.
Otherwise, you just want to run red, right?
You just want reds, yeah. So the only blue you should realistically be playing, at least now looking at LL lists, is Passing Mirage.
That's Mirage. Yeah.
So, but yeah, this fits but Fearless Confrontation fits the Enigma mold great, right? Like it's a blue block 3 that doesn't hand scale, right? But like I mentioned before, Enigma doesn't have a hand scaling problem, right? So it would just be in her deck. You would blow people out when they try and dominate to clear your board.
No.
And when they didn't have dominate, you would just block 3 with it.
Yeah. And if they ever do come up with another illusionist class, and Dromai might be coming out in the future, right? Bisville will make a return one day. Fearless Confrontation, you're going to hear it here first. Like, you might want to put your eyes on that because it is still a blue block 3 that does have some upside. So I don't know what that might look like, but it's definitely good sneaky tech. And I'm all about that sneaky tech. So
Yep.
Just remember, it came out in a set that was supposed to support Guardian.
Yeah.
The rich get richer. All right.
Absolutely.
So I guess we could talk about the heroes, and we'll start in the order we mentioned them and kind of end on the current Prism, the only illusionist still around. When we mention the heroes, we could briefly cover their weapon cards as well, just so we get that context. And, maybe your initial thoughts, Jeremy, on these heroes, because you have a better, you and Ning will have a better understanding of these heroes than I do, since they kind of rolled out before I even got into the game. The first one would be Prism, Sculptor of Arclight. Look at her monocle. It's such a lovely card. So
great art.
And what we could do is we could take kind of turns reading the card just for our listeners and the people that are hearing us in the background. But this is Prism, Sculptor of Arclight. She's a once per turn instant. 2 resources, banish a card from Prism's Soul. Create a Spectral Shield token. She's got your basic stat line of 4 intellect and 40 life. Light Illusionist hero. And what is her weapon? I do not remember what it was called.
It's Luminaris.
Just
Just OG.
Illuminaris.
Just
Original
OG.
Luminaris.
Just OG Illuminaris. How many do you guys understand that I'm going to be having trouble spelling that?
It's Luminate, but then instead of
Oh,
eight,
not
it's artist.
illuminate, but lumin. I got you.
Lu-
Okay,
That was very clever.
Thank you.
I got you. All right, Luminaris. So during your action phase, illusionist auras you control are weapons with 1 base power and once per turn attack. No resource, just attack. If there is a yellow card in your pitch zone, your illusion attacks gets go again. Get me out of here. I don't think I ever read this card before. That is
This card is arguably the strongest weapon in all of Flesh and Blood.
dude. This is oh my gosh. No wonder why she LL'd.
Yeah, so that's the thing about OG Prism is that her hero text box was pretty good, right? That ability was very relevant. But what made her so freaking broken was Luminaris.
Jesus. Is she strong in LL, the format, or is she just like a mid because there's so many other powerful heroes there?
I don't know that much about LL, but the thing is, you play new Prism, but you play the old weapon.
Okay.
Interesting.
That's the both worlds and very broken.
Interesting.
Right. So she's good to go, but I can see why she's strong because this weapon is like you don't have to know much about it. This breaks a lot of different rules.
Yeah,
Right.
A little bit of story time is that I'm willing to say like one of the only like 100-0 matchups we've ever had in Flesh and Blood was Prism versus Guardian not named Starvo. Because what Prism did is she had phantasm attacks, right? So they were above rate attacks if your opponent couldn't pop them. So she had a way to race the aggro decks. But then against decks that had a lot of poppers, but little action points, Guardian being the namesake example, she would just play Spectra, right? She would play multiple Spectra in a turn. She would play 2 Spectra in a turn. And Bravo would sit there with his hammer and go, kill 1 Spectra, right? And then Prism would be like, okay, great. I still have 10 Spectral Shields. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, right?
Oh,
that's awful.
That sounds awful.
All right. Let's talk about
it was bad.
Let's talk about the most fair illusionists out there compared to our guests on this podcast. Dromai Ash Artist, the buxom babe herself. Look at that baby dragon in her arm. Such a great card.
It's great.
And now, Ning, I kind of want to skip you just so I can have Jeremy read this card.
No,
Jeremy,
sure.
And you can take the next one.
Yes, Dromai Ash Artist was a 4 intellect, 40 health draconic illusionist hero. She said, whenever you pitch a red card, create an Ash token. And if you've played a red card this turn, dragons you control have go again while attacking.
And then what was her weapon called? It was like
Storm of Sandakai. Yeah.
Yep.
I was like Sandakar or something like that, right? But it's Sandakai. Okay.
And this one said, dragon allies you control have once per turn action, 0 cost to attack.
There you go.
So you can swing with them for free. And they just keep getting go again.
Yep. It was a nice little package because all you had to do, right? All your dragons are red. So you would play a dragon, you would swing with it. If it lived, on your next turn, you would play a second dragon, swing with it, it had go again, and then you swing with the previous dragon.
Wow.
Very big snowball effect.
Yeah, I can see though the way you control that is make sure they clear their board state. I know that's easier said than done, but if you had the popper, there's not a lot of popper mitigation with Dromai, so you could pop that dragon and swing back, clear the board, then swing at her, and do play the very long game, right? I feel like you'd have to kind of play the long game, a very methodical, clear the field, swing face, clear the field. Is that kind of how you played against her?
Yeah, and that's the other thing about Illusionist that I want to say is, right, because you were making the rules of the game, you were forcing every other class to play on your level.
Yeah.
Right? So Dromai wanted to take the game long, right? And there are classes that can blitzer, right? Ninja, for example. But in general, you were in her domain. Enigma is a great example of this too. You're in their space when you play against Illusionists. That's why people hate playing against them. That's why they're so fun to play.
You're really pitching this. You sure you're not on LSS payroll here, Jeremy? Like they didn't like try to say, hey, we need you to change the positivity and the
That's
feelings
right.
around this hero class because you're really selling it, man. Everyone, I'm selling a Prism deck. No, I'm just joking. I'm not gonna use this chat. But all right, let's move on. That's a
I
nice
think
segue.
I like to think of it as a very fair, right? Like I point out a lot of the BS that Illusionist does, but at the same time, it does make it very fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good old Dromai. All right. Next on the docket, we have Enigma, Ledger of Ancestry. Her hero text says your first spectral shield attack each turn costs 1 less to activate, and once per turn you can pitch your chi card, which lets you create a spectral shield token with a +1 counter. And she does have intellect 4 with 40 health. The first line of text matters because of her weapon, Cosmos, Scroll of Ancestral Tapestry. During your turn, auras you control with ward are weapons with base equal to their ward, and once per turn, you can pay 1 to attack. Your aura attacks with 1 or more +1 counters get go again.
Okay.
So effectively, if you pitch into Enigma with your chi, it creates a spectral shield token with a +1 counter, and you can just swing that for free as your first attack, and it has go again.
Now, I want to make a hot statement here, right? I don't think Enigma's hero ability and weapon card was like overly broken. I just think in the context of the chi mechanic in the set of Mistville, it was busted. Right? I mean, is that like her? Because it seems like it is a little bit fair here, like compared to like when I'm reading Dromai, it's on par with that power level. Maybe not on par with Prism #1, but I felt like Enigma was kind of like closer to Dromai's power level than it was to OG Prism. You know, I mean, thoughts on that before we move on to the last one?
It's funny that you say that because when Enigma came out, she was kind of marketed as like the fixed illusionist because the dynamic with the the Prism Spectra that came before in the Dromai allies is that the onus was on the opponent to clear them, right? You playing against Dromai, right, made the decisions whether to attack the dragon or not. Whereas in this case, because Enigma's offensive power was ward related, you just attacked Enigma. There was no decision to be made. Enigma made the decision of whether they were to block and protect their ward or to let the ward pop and develop a new one. So that was the marketing. And I actually agree, Will. Like, I think it's kind of an interesting idea and take on the illusionist class. The problem was everything they made related to that was overrated.
Yeah,
was way too high power.
I like to bring Enigma up again and say ignore this health bar because that ward, it's like it should read 4 intellect health X. So that's just what I'm gonna say it. All right, we're going to get to the last Prism. This is the only illusionist still around, so I saved the best for last because she's the only one that could be considered the best in the classic constructive format. That would be Awakener of Soul. Whenever a card with Herald is in its name is put into Prism Soul during an action phase, you may search your deck for a figment, put it into the arena, then shuffle. Once per turn instant, pay 2 resources, banish a card from Prism Soul, awaken target figment you control. Means flip it. Now, this is where we were talking about how you get the figments, whatever concept, into an Archangel of that same concept. The one we like to use is the figment of Erudition. And this will naturally has a and usually when these figments come in, they're usually light illusionist instance. You don't ever want to pay the 4 cost for this card, right? Because my gosh, you're undervalued. But if you could cheat it with her ability and bring it out, that's kind of where the value comes in. But let's talk about her weapon, and this is the new Luminartis. I can't remember how you guys say it. It's not Celestial Fury, but Angel's Glow. If there's a yellow card in your pitch zone, the first attack action card with Herald in its name you play each turn, and your first Angel attack each turn get go again. One thing to note I didn't read on her actual hero card was she is 4 intellect and 32 life. Alright, so she's only got 30 life. They gave her 8 points off to make her more balanced. But yeah, so the Angel's Glow, I do think that this is probably again on par with. I think this is a fair hero, right? You get a lot of great on value, right? Because an Angel for 7, I'm sorry, Herald for 7, swing with an Angel, and then finish with a Herald. That's only 18 points of value. Usually only for like maybe like a six power. That's fair, right?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
it's a 2 card. It's a 2 card, maybe a 3 card 18.
Yeah, we're getting some angry comments, man.
Like,
I can't participate in this conversation.
look,
The first Tunic Counter Gamers episode where a co-host walks off the screen.
Absolutely.
I do think that there is some like here's the there Prism's not running rampant out there. There's a reason why she's not LL'd yet, right? She's been around for 2-3 years, right? 2 years, right? Had it been about 2 years.
Something like that.
She came out like Dusk to Dawn, right? Which is about 2 years ago. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember that because Trevor started playing right before Dusk to Dawn. I thought, yeah. I mean, there's a reason why she hasn't LL'd. There's a lot of complications with building her, right? There's a lot of ways of stopping her in some ways. There's a lot of decision points in her game. Man, I'm sound like I'm describing Gravy Bones in some way. But so, what do you guys think about the only Illusionist still around before we move it on to the next one?
I think you're selling her short. Well, I think she's still very good.
Oh, she's definitely good. I mean,
Yeah.
I
I think
think
she's just not like top of the meta right now because there's a better Illusionist around.
but she eats Gravy though. I mean, I think it's a more of a 60-40 matchup. I don't think it's so much in favor of Prism, but I think she does prey on Gravy Bones allies pretty well.
It might be changing now. Like I think it just took some time for Gravy to figure out the matchup.
That's fair.
But regardless, my point is like Pro Tour London, right? The meta was Enigma, Aurora, and at the top 8 of that PT was Prism, right? We put 3 copies of new Prism into the top 8 of that Pro Tour. So she's still very much a powerful hero.
Yeah.
And relevant. It's just that Gravy and Slippy have really taken control of the meta. So that's why I don't think she's as relevant right now at this exact moment.
Do you think that she's unfavored into Slippy?
I think so.
Okay. I know it used to be that she had a little bit of a better play against the slower assassins like Mario because she could kind of fish out the ward and prevent those on-hit effects. But I think, like you said, Slippy was still being discovered, Gravy Bones was still being discovered, so it kind of makes sense that she's having a hard time with 2 of the top contending meta decks.
Yeah, and like I said, like I don't think she has strictly losing matchups against those 2. It's just that those players have gotten a lot better at playing against Prism. So.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing about like the only Illusionist that's still around, and this kind of bleed into our expert insights. I'm certainly no expert, but I'm gonna try to convey some kind of thought here. But I don't think Prism has any 0% matchup. Like it's no auto loss matchup. So if she's like 40 to 60% across the field, and sometimes even 100%. I get choked up thinking about Prism, guys. But even if some of her matchups are like darn near 100% winning, but she doesn't have any auto losses, I don't think either. Right? So she's really, and it really does depend on how strong the pilot is when they pilot the only Illusionist still in Classic Constructed.
It really is a pilot thing, I think.
Yeah.
Like Prism is a hard deck.
Yeah.
She has a lot more ins and outs than people give her credit for.
I know our meta, they're all competitive players. They are all top contenders. They love to crap on Prism by saying, hey, you just swing your cards, right? And it plays itself. But I do think that's the tier 1 play. Yeah, she's a very aggressive, very easy to pilot deck starting out once you figure out her mechanic. But the nuances at the upper level, there's a reason why Andrew Cook consistently plays this. There's a reason why your friend was showing me tricks that I didn't even think about. What's your friend's name again? One that yellow Ruben. All right, shout out to Ruben.
Yeah, Paul 2.0.
Paul 2.0.
New York Paul.
New York Paul.
Yeah, New York Paul.
Refer back to episode 5, y'all. You'll see New York. You'll see OG Paul. Anyways, so yeah. So any other expert insights on new Prism before we kind of move over to the myth busting and closing out this podcast?
I would just say give Prism a try. She's a fun hero, and yes, a lot of your like it's that bell curve meme, right?
Yeah.
Where both sides is like big cocks, no blocks. And the center is like, oh my god, you have to think, but
yeah. So Ning, I'm going to spoil it out there.
It's quite a deep hero once you get into it.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on Prism?
There are none. I'm just here for the ride, and maybe one day I don't have to play against her. I don't know.
That was the nicest thing he said about Illusionist all episode.
Look, and I get that Illusionist is a new player stopgap. Because it's newer players, it's going to be hard to understand that Illusionists just fundamentally, like Wizards, are a different class of hero compared to what they're normally used to playing. Even with the Warrior Assassin attack reactions, Guardians going tall, Rangers going tall, fundamentally, Illusionist, like Jeremy was saying this whole episode, breaks the rules. That's where new players kind of get confused, and then that confusion is that frustration. Refer back to any of the other number of episodes where we talked about that. But once you learn how to mitigate against this Illusionist matchup, it does become easier until you fight someone that actually specializes in illusion. And you understand there's a whole nother level of, play there, and you can have a lot of fun. Like, I think even with the same hero, like your friend Ruben from New York, Paul 2.0, man, he brought in a fun deck, and it was fun. So fun that my co Evan said, "Will, be careful. Wink, wink. Just be careful. Wink, wink." Didn't tell me nothing else. He wanted me to experience Ruben's deck for myself. And if you guys can't tell from the way I talk on the cast, I get very excited very easily. So in a family store, I said, "What the? Would this happen to me?" Right? Like, this is so surprising. Anyways, I won't spoil it because I don't want to take Ruben's fun for him. Hopefully, he's still playing that fun deck because it was fun. But man, I thought, oh, I'm losing bad. Yeah, any other expert insights before we go on to the Mythbusters?
I will just say, if you play Illusionist, you will always be meta relevant.
That's probably very true. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's a great way. Man, I need to clip that and make that a short.
If you want to be a competitive player and specialize, just play Illusionist. And will never give. Like, we haven't seen an era in this game where Illusionist is bad. Like, all of the Illusionists have LL'd.
And to go further with that, it's also one of the cheapest decks to build. Right? Because you only, like, I'm talking about Prism alone. Yes, it's a $500 deck when you compile everything else, not including the Treasures of Pie or whatever that card's called. But because Prism cards are only Prism cards. And it might be like, and people still have an influx of these cards from when they play Prism, getting rid of Prism, but there's only a very few cards that actually cost a lot of money. All right. But overall, it's a fairly cheap deck to play compared to, like, say, Assassin or those other heroes. Jeremy, you got thoughts on that?
I'm not a finance person, so I don't know.
All right. This is cardboard, not finance. I think the card guy, not the card guy, I can't remember who says that, but one of the other podcasts says that. I love that when they say it. All right. So get into the Mythbusters. These are just rumors or things I pull from Discord, pull from our local groups, just things that we hear about when we're out there playing these cards. So we're going to say yes on the myth or no, and we're going to give our justification to the reason why. And that's kind of where this section comes in. This is kind of tongue-in-cheek. First myth, Illusionists can't win against aggressive decks.
This is definitely a myth.
Yeah, they have above rate attacks. You said it earlier. Just race the aggro matchups how I would approach it. How would you approach it from a more experienced Illusionist player? Ning, feel free to chime in here because I know you had a lot of frustrations with the Uzuri. So
I don't have a good answer for this.
You play Syndra. Like, do you like seeing a Prism player?
I think so. I have played against Prism as Syndra, and I think overall, I don't know, it's probably like maybe 50-50 or 60-40 for me as Syndra in terms of racing and just trying to be smart about blocking when I need to. But yeah, I don't know. It's still hard to win. Thinking has to occur to get there. It's not just, oh, I see card, I play card, I win. You know.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think
how about
like
you?
illusionists are definitely the aggressive decks do better against illusionists,
Mm-hmm.
right? Going back to the setup cost we were explaining earlier, but
Hmm.
I also showed very many examples of why illusionists are still above rate, even
Yeah.
into these aggressive, efficient decks.
Hmm.
So
Yep. Yep.
can't win is definitely exaggeration
Yeah.
for sure.
All right. Phantasm makes Herald useless.
Not with those
Or
shoes.
or Phantasm makes, Phantasm useless. Or you know what I mean. So Phantasm makes Herald useless. Yeah, you said it, Ning. Not with those shoes, right? But there's also ways to mitigate this. Um, against some decks, sure, there's a lot of six. Brutes, namely, have an easier time against, you know, illusionist heroes because of the amount of six attacks they have. But against others, there's not a lot of six attacks, right? They maybe have a
Mm-hmm.
six, right? And they tech for that matchup.
Mhm. Yeah, and the thing is, Phantasm is a downside, right? Against decks
Hmm.
with a lot of poppers, it's a downside, but Elsis has given Illusionist an alternative game plan
Mm,
to win against these decks,
yeah.
right? Guardian has a lot of poppers, but not a lot of action points, and therefore you run a Spectra game plan into them and completely blow them out of the water, right? Brute is the exception to this, I think, because they have poppers and they
Mm-hmm.
can also be aggressive and go wide,
Hmm.
right? Which is why when people think of counters, they tend to brute, but it's not even that, right? Back in Dromai, in the Dromai meta, right? Dromai still competed just fine with against KO,
Hmm.
because what would happen is you would purposely attack your dragons into their poppers. They would pop them, and then realize, oh no, those are the cards I wanted to attack with,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it was hard, but it definitely was not a matchup where you just auto conceded, right? And
Right.
another thing to realize is you would play something like Mirror Guy, the dragon that gave anti Phantasm, and also you would
Mm-hmm.
chain that with Passing Mirage,
Mm,
right? So when you presented two anti Phantasm threats, right? Now your opponent, right? You would line them up together, and now your opponent had to deal with them together. Hopefully, they
yeah.
had to go to get an attack
And I
and could
remember
clear both.
I think I was on Reinar when I first played against your Dromai, Jeremy, and you were working me through a lot of things, and because I had the tools, I just didn't have the knowledge of the game yet to understand what to do, and and you always said this is a hard matchup for new players to understand because it's just different, right? But you're very patient about that. I think that's also a thing with any of those people that are illusionists interested is be patient with the newer players. You're going to need to walk them through a lot of things. Don't just steamroll them because it's fun, haha. I mean, it's fun, but that's not what we're here for, right? We want to really grow this game and get that community. And it's good when they get to that level where they understand what your game plan is, so they can help fight you and get you better as an illusionist to grow.
I do have to admit, when I first played against Andrew Cook and his Prism, I had the exact same thought process as when I played my first Kano match, which was, oh, you're doing a whole thing. All right, just tell me what it's done and just tell me the end result because I can't follow anything of what you're talking about, what you're doing. So, once we pass that threshold, it gets mildly easier to figure out.
Yeah, and then I guess the last thing. So myth busted phantasm does makes heralds useless is absolutely false. It just there's so many love against that. So, all right. So we always like to end with the practical takeaway before we close this out. You guys ready for this hard hitting question, Jeremy? I'm gonna let you answer it. No prep
All right.
involved. I'm just gonna spitball it right here. What's a
Yeah.
recommended hero for players to start with, as far as Illusionist goes?
As far as illusionist goes,
Yeah.
yeah, play Gravy Bones.
Actually, that did not go the route I wanted it to go. In Classic Constructed, there's only one Illusionist there. I guess Gravy Bones, if you want an Illusionist adjacent hero to play, both operate very similar, I guess. But I like Prism, but I can see how Gravy Bones has a lot of potential as well, especially like what you're saying, different play lines and stuff.
I saw the answer on the script, Will. I just couldn't give it to you.
What script? We don't script this show.
Absolutely not.
All right. Well, speaking of scripts, I guess it will end up closing. No surprise there. Illusionists live on the edge of brilliance and fragility. One moment overwhelming the arena with angels or dragons, and the next watching their entire strategy vanish with a single six-power swing. That's the gamble, and that's also the thrill. If you crave a class that forces your opponents to question every move, every defense, every breath, Illusionist is your path. Just remember, seeing is believing until the illusion shatters. If you need to find us, my Discord is midnight underscore WI11. Jeremy, if they want to reach out to you, do you have a handle you want to shout out here?
Oh man, I think it's just J Chen, Fab JCHEN FAB on like Twitter and Blue Sky, but I don't really post.
If you have any questions
you want to find
or
me,
anything
just,
you want to reach out, just midnight underscore WI11. Just fun it all through.
If you're in the Georgia like Flesh and Blood discords, like it's pretty easy to find me. Just be like, hey, where's that annoying Dromai guy?
Shoot.
People will point you in the right direction.
Anything but annoying. All right. Well, until next time, remember, every turn is a decision, every decision is a story, and don't forget, you're damned to the counter.